Welcome to my channel, Fast Fate Stories, where fate doesn't waste time. This story is part 1 of a 6-part faith-based saga. Settle in, subscribe, and let's dive in. The name on the church sign read Pastor Ezra Hayes. Few realized the name Hayes was chosen, not inherited. Born Ezra Whitlock, son of a shipping magnate whose empire spanned oceans, Ezra had walked away from skyscrapers, fortune, and privilege. He had walked away because wealth came with rot, greed, deceit, and a darkness he refused to pass down to his 2 children, Caleb and Emma, now 7 and 5. They lived modestly in a small parsonage beside the church. The roof leaked when the rains came, and the paint peeled in long strips, but it was theirs, honest, untainted. Ezra preached, not from ivory towers but from calloused hands, built from mending pews, digging gardens, and cradling the broken-hearted. Yet the past held long shadows. It began with loss. His wife, Hannah, had been his steady flame, a schoolteacher with a laugh that could soften Emma's tantrums and smooth Caleb's stubborn streak. One winter morning, while driving the children to school, a truck ran a red light. Hannah shielded the children, saving them. They survived with minor scrapes. She did not. Grief hollowed Ezra. Caleb stopped speaking for weeks. Emma clung to her father's leg wherever he went. Ezra prayed thunderously at first, then quietly, as though unsure God still listened. A month after the funeral, the congregation continued to sit stiff with sorrow, waiting for a word, any word. It was Ezra's first Sunday back full-time at the church. He stood behind the pulpit, Bible in hand, but no sound came. His voice was gone, swallowed by grief. It was Lily Moore, the pianist, who filled the silence. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play. "It is well with my soul." Ezra froze. That was Hannah's hymn, her favorite hymn, the one she sang while folding laundry, the one she hummed rocking Emma to sleep. He had never told a soul. Only he and his children knew what that song meant. The notes swelled, haunting and tender. Emma sat next to Caleb on the front pew, both sharing a knowing look between each other, who dared not speak, both now looking back at their father as if to say, "Daddy, that's Mummy's song. That did it." Failing to hold his emotions in, the helpless looks on his children's faces done him in. Ezra broke down. Tears ran unchecked down his face. He wept openly before his congregation, his grief drawn out not by words, but by music. The notes of the song continued to flow out into every corner of the church. When the hymn ended, Lily closed the piano softly. She hadn't played it at the funeral, and never at this church before. But as the first notes filled the sanctuary, her hands moved as if guided. She wanted to stop. She couldn't. In 3 years of playing for this congregation, she had never felt so strange. When the service was over, she gathered her things quickly and left before Pastor Hayes could make his way to her. That night, it had been hard getting the kids to bed. After tucking them in, Ezra sat at the kitchen table, as the lamp casted long shadows across the worn wood. As much as he liked where they lived, the building was old. He wondered if they should move, especially now as he clutched the large gold envelope in his hand that had arrived a week after Hannah's death. Legal papers, custody challenges. His older brother, Victor Whitlock, had never forgiven Ezra for leaving the family name behind. Victor inherited the empire, the billions, and the coldness their father had molded. When Hannah's funeral drew whispers, Victor had appeared, dressed impeccably. "You don't belong here, Ezra," Victor had sneered outside the churchyard. "You hide behind scripture while your children starve. They should be raised as Whitlocks, not peasants. They're mine," Ezra had said, steel in his voice. Now, as he continued to read over the papers for what felt like the 10th time, his blood boiled for the entirely untrue picture that Victor's lawyers were trying to paint. It was argued that Ezra's parsonage was inadequate, his income unstable, his choice to sever ties with the Whitlock fortune proof of unfitness. The battle was draining him, and he could see where word had quickly spread throughout the church. Another reason why he had stepped down for a month before he came back. Members of his own congregation had started to whisper, what kind of shepherd couldn't protect his flock at home? Slamming the papers down on the table, he propped his tired head in his hands, wondering if he should come back after the display he put on today. "What if I'm not ready?" he whispered to God. The house was quiet, save for the tick of the old clock and the muffled rustle of the wind outside. He should have been preparing his notes for Wednesday night Bible study, but his mind kept drifting back to Lily, her hands on the keys. the way the sanctuary seemed to hold its breath when the first chords of Hannah's hymn, Hannah's words of faith, carried through Lily's fingers as if heaven itself had chosen her to speak to him. Ezra pressed a hand against his eyes, willing the ache away. Lily had played it. Why? Accident? Providence? He felt incredibly fortunate that he and the church had Lily as their pianist. He'd always loved Lily's music, and the way she played always seemed to settle him in ways that nothing else could. But today that song seemed to seep into his soul with a message so deep, so pure, that he couldn't help but break down. The only way he'd find sleep was by taking a sleeping pill. He did so and went to bed late. Across town, Lily sat in her small apartment, the piano by the window still open as though waiting for her to play again. She hadn't eaten, hadn't even changed out of her Sunday dress. Her fingers rested lightly on the keys, but she couldn't bring herself to press down. What had come over her earlier today? She certainly hadn't planned to play that song. And yet, in those moments at the service, it was as if something had passed through her, something larger than memory, larger than her. She thought of Pastor Hayes' face as the hymn began, the way his composure cracked, his grief suddenly visible for all to see. Lily had almost stopped, terrified she was hurting him, but the music had carried her forward. She pressed a single note and let it hang in the air. Why that song? She whispered to herself. She looked down at her hands, then her individual fingers, still uncertain whose will they had obeyed that morning. Then, almost unconsciously, she began playing it again, allowing the song to unfold. The melody filled her small home, stirring something she couldn't name. She closed her eyes, and to her surprise, it wasn't Hannah she thought of. It was Pastor Hayes, sitting alone in the front pew, tears slipping down his face, as if her music had unlocked a door in him that no one else could reach. Then suddenly his tears began to dry up, and as if by magic, his eyes began to peer through her, deeply, differently. Suddenly, she shifted in her piano bench in a quick motion, causing her to stop before the last verse could finish, her heart pounding in her chest. What she suddenly felt for him now made her cry herself to sleep. "Oh God, not this," she whispered in between her sobs, holding her heart. Anything but this. She knew there was only one thing left for her to do. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Part 2 continues the saga.